remember going to school. I was the face of this indigenous person. And I was mocked. And I was picked on because I was poor and that my clothes smelled. So I was reminded every day how I didn't belong. You know, I don't know why it hit me harder that day than any other day. My mother must have sensed something's wrong because she came in and she said something to me that will carry me through the Special Forces.
A few months ago, I flew out to Colorado to spend a full week with Tulam, one of the greatest teachers of the Bushido Code. Over those 7 days, we filmed over 50 hours of footage, and recently we went through every single minute of footage to find the 7 ultimate lessons. Today's video was made possible with Mulliganbrothers.com, where you can now get all the best motivational clothing in the world with the link in the description, where all the profits go back into making this content possible. But before that, here are the 7 lessons that I learned from the greatest teacher of the Bushido Code, Tulam.
Mind and body is connected. You must train the mind like you train the body. Too many times in today's world, in this Western belief, is that I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to get jacked, I need to look this certain way. That's the expectation that you place on yourself. Fitness is important, yes. But you must train the mind as well. Mind and body must be connected, right? So in today's world, I see a lot of, guys going and females going to the gym, they train their bodies, but nobody's really training their mind. And the only way you train your mind, if you sit with yourself, you slow down that breathing and you find out what's important. What's important in your life? And then from there, that's a seed for change. It's a seed for change because now you know what's important and you have a direction. So that's what the advice I give is a lot of veterans and a lot of people that experience trauma, they don't have a direction. That's why they rely on the externals. You have to break up that pattern. You have to break up that pattern and you have to figure out who you are in this world, not somebody else's truth. What is your truth?
Courage in war and courage in life are two different things. Because when I got out, I didn't have courage. Courage to me is to live a life that's true to yourself, regardless of what other people say or think about you. Regardless if you doubt yourself, do you have the courage? Lao Tzu, the philosopher, back in ancient China, 500 BC, And Lao Tzu was said that this philosopher, record keeper of the emperor, Zen master, he said that he got so tired of living in this corrupted government where the emperor seek to starve and oppress their own people, murder, a tyrant. And Lao Tzu here is this record keeper. And he said that Lao Tzu had enough, so he got on a water buffalo. He traveled all the way to the end of this dynasty. And there was a guard that was standing there, and then the guard said, "Stop, who are you?" And when he realized that this is royalty, he got down to his knees and he asked for forgiveness to Lao Tzu. And he asked for the purpose of Lao Tzu. And Lao Tzu wished to leave this political grounds. He told her how corrupted this government is. The guard said, "I will let you pass if you give me wisdom." And it was said within this moment that Lao Tzu wrote down the words that were later known as Taoism. So he was the father of Taoism. And Lao Tzu says, "The journey of 1,000 miles began with a single step." Something so simple, right? So simple. A journey of 1,000 miles began with a single step, but the preparation for that step. You must live the life that you didn't want to live to transform your first step into becoming the person you wish to be. I was weak as a child. What was the first steps of becoming this warrior? Right? So throughout the phases of your life, you must ask yourself, it allows you to understand our life is a journey of 1,000 miles. And that first step begins with intelligence. And how do you become intelligent? By first living the life that you don't wish to live, by seeing what you don't want to be. So what I'm saying to you is life is just that. It's about making mistakes. It's about failing. And throughout this process of growth and knowledge, you become the person that you wish to be. And that takes work. And if you get stuck, then realize that you're doing the same shit over and over again. You're expecting things to change when your daily routine is the same and your mind is just the same, but yet you expect this change. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for my journey of 1,000 miles. And step by step, I walk my journey right into my last breath in this world. And what people don't realize is that when you walk through your journey of life, it's education. The world is your teacher. But the thing is, not all of us have the courage to live this life because we're afraid of failures. We're afraid of mistakes. We're afraid of hardships because that's survival mindset. But what if I were to tell you to place it all on the line and bet it all over your own existence to live your truth? And I'm grateful for that. Because through my struggles, I found my truth. And that willed me to become the person I am today. To close off my war years, I visit Miyamoto Musashi. I went to Redondo Cave and I climbed that cave. It was a unique morning because, my wife knew that this journey to Kiyomoto needs to happen. And we were traveling all through Japan. I had this journalist attached to me. I'm Ronin, So that morning, we caught a private flight to Kiyomoto with one of my real close friends. And we had a private driver, pick us up at the airport. The older gentleman, he was so happy, right, to be driving to see Musashi. And I asked him, why are you excited? And he said, I never been here, I never been here before. And he drove me for hours. He drove, and as I looked at the terrain, as we were driving through this kind of misty environment, it was kind of rainy that morning. I was driving through and I was looking at the navigation system. I can see why Musashi retreated to this area. It was secluded, it was in the mountains, so beautiful. And as we poured into the parking lot, I want to tell you, there was a huge statue, 4 stories high, this statue of Musashi meditating, and there was Bushido writing all around him. And I was so happy. I got out and I started, taking pictures and started video, and then instantly my camera stopped working. And I was pondering on it because I just bought this camera. It worked everywhere else, I started to get upset. And my wife came up to me and she goes, just let it go, enjoy this moment. And when she said that, if I was a Ronin of the past, and I was to teach this Ronin of the future one lesson, it would be just that. To be mindful. We lived in a very small apartment, and the only furniture that we had was one used full-size mattress. None of our classmates or friends can even go there. We didn't have any, but nobody was invited because we were embarrassed. And they worked so hard, my parents. The refugees from their surrounding communities would donate us clothes to help us get on our feet. Clothes that are 3 generations holes in the clothes, holes in the shoes. Barely fits me. Holes that my mother would stay up late at night to fix. Shoes that she'll patch up so we can go to school. You know, I remember going to school. I was the face of this indigenous person. You know, and I was mocked. And I was picked on because I was poor and that my clothes smelled. So I was reminded every day how I didn't belong. It was a very hard time in my life, you know, growing up there. I want to put you on this bad day for me. You know, I was being picked on, I wasn't accepted. You know, we were called all sorts of names, and it was actually supported by the parents of these kids and the teacher because they didn't like refugees moving into their hometown. And second, I was the face of an unpopular war. It was very racist times in America back then. So, substitute teacher days are my worst days, you know. They try to pronounce my name. My name's pronounced Du Tung Lam. And a lot of people can't pronounce that. With this persistent substitute teacher try to pronounce my name, and that egged on the class to make fun of me. Throw paper at me and tell me how much I don't belong here. You know, on this really bad day, the substitute teacher said, boy, you need to go down to the principal's office. And he looked at the bully who started, and he said, you too. So I did. I went down to the principal's office, and the principal told me to sit in one corner, and the boy's going to sit in another. He said, your parents will come pick you up. And, you know, my mother didn't drive, so I knew I'd be sitting here for a while. And then finally, the mother of the bully showed up, and she demanded to know what's going on. And substitute teacher said, your son called that boy right there a chink. You know, I don't know why it hit me harder that day than any other day. I'm reminded that every single day. But on this day, I was defeated. So the mother, she went and grabbed her son and she walked over to me, and I was looking at the ground, already defeated, you know? Demanding me to stare at her, so I stood up. And she said something that, you know, well, obviously I remember to this day. She said, my son is right. You don't belong here. You need to go back home to your country. I don't have a country. I cried so hard that day that I started hyperventilating, you know, and the principal said, boy, you're going to cry like that. You need to go out in the hallway. So I did. I went in the hall and cried. My mother, she never picked me up. And that night, I sat in that room on this used mattress. And I reflected on this day. My mother must have sensed something's wrong, because she came in and she said something to me that will carry me through the special forces. She said to me, we will always have our bad days. Every one of us will have our bad days. But what did you learn from it? And who's the person you will become? Bruce Lee was really big in my era, right? Because we didn't have very much Asians, right, as role models. Think about it, like when I came from Vietnam, you know, I was the face of an unpopular war. There was no, you know, Asians that were popular. It was very racist times in America. So Bruce Lee was it. And what Bruce Lee taught me was not just the Jeet Kune Do, the art of intercepting fists, but he also breaks down into the teachings of rhythm, of form, you know. And what is martial arts? Martial arts is the proper execution from A to B, right? Flawlessly, without effort, to just live like water, without effort. A to B, effortless. Well, can we apply that to a sword, a gun? Yeah. Can we apply that to life? We can, right? So he teaches Taoism in a lot of his martial arts, but what I love about his fighting stance is he draws from Western style boxing.
You know, he draws from Shaolin Kung Fu. He draws from judo, jujitsu. So what I'm saying is, in the art of Budo, one must be formless, like water, right? So as a warrior, you must adapt to that environment. And the only way that you can adapt to an environment and situation is through knowledge, through intelligence, right? So if I need to operate at 18,500 feet to do a cliff assault, then I have to adapt my body and mind, right? I have to train in these environments. My body has to endure without oxygen, you know? So what that teaches you in this, and I had this since I was a little boy, right? And you can see my collection grew, but I had this as a little boy, as a teenager. And what I learned is that do not crystallize a belief. You know, you must be formless, like water, shapeless, right? So if you put me into a country and I have to find, fix, and locate, you know, a bad guy, then I'm going to form to that environment based off my intelligence and understanding of the people, the terrain, the environment, the infrastructure, the technology, the political, the history. I take all this knowledge and I apply it to my execution, which is formless because I draw within different martial arts, different tactics based off of my intelligence of that environment. And that to me is formless. What the military taught me was structure, right? So like I said, from making the bed to washing dishes, the structure, it taught me structure to not avoid the small things. Attention to detail, we always say, you know? In war, if I'm driving down this route at night under night vision and this box that's sitting on the side of the road, this cardboard box wasn't there for the route. You understand? So it's about attention to detail. Okay, so what the military taught me was just that, attention to detail, mission planning. It taught me discipline. So I was able to take all those valuable assets and apply it to business. It teaches you to be a leader. You have to be a leader in the military. You go to the leadership development schools. You know, as a Green Beret, I had to train, you know, FID forces. I had to be a leader. You know, so I took that aspect of leadership and I brought it into the military. My strict upbringing, it taught me to do shit that I don't want to do. And what is discipline? Discipline is being able to do shit that you don't want to do, right? Based off on what is your end state? What do you want to be? You know, look, people say too, why do you get up so freaking early? Because it's hard. It takes discipline. I don't want to get up that early. It takes discipline, right? So it's about doing stuff you don't want to do. I was born on a cold cement floor in the basement Saigon Hospital. My mother shielded my body from incoming artillery fire in the morning of my birth. At this stage of the war, American troops had left Vietnam, and I was born on the losing side of the war, a war between communism and democracy. Democracy lost. See, the communists seek to impose their ideals on us, and they broke us as human beings. We escaped genocide when I was 3 years old on an overstuffed wooden fishing boat. You know, they, in order to fit more refugees on, they took water and food supplies off the boats to put more bodies so more refugees can escape. There was an estimated 400,000 refugees died at sea. But yet on this night, my mother loaded us in the basement of this wooden boat. We made our way into Malaysia, where the Malaysian Coast Guard stopped us at gunpoint, shot at us,
boarded our boats, roped the line, and pulled us back out into the South China Sea, further and further into the sea, into hopelessness. When there was no more hope, then they cut the rope. Then they shot our engine, and they left us there to die. What turned out to be a 2-day trip, we drifted. My mother said that we roughly were out at sea for 30 days. The lack of food and water, people died, suffered. It was common practice amongst fleeing refugees to carry poison in their belongings. The poison was to minister to their child so they would not endure a life of slavery, torture. You know, I think back to my mother as we were dying on this boat, drifting, dying. Bodies were being thrown overboard. 3 years old, can you believe it? As we were drifting, I think back, one more day. You know, what my mother had to endure, one more day. As we were dying in front of her, the ulcers growing our legs. My mother, her strength, one more day. When people were dying, she held on to one more day. Well, she didn't poison us, and we got caught up in a storm. Huge tropical storm. She said this storm was so fierce that we should have been capsized on this small little wooden fishing boat. Further and further we drift, she said the waves were so massive. And she was prepared for death that night. But somehow the storm washes further out into the South China Sea. And the next day, when the storm broke, we were drifting. And somehow this storm led us into a path, the lat-long coordinates of a Russian supply boat. South China Sea. Can you imagine how big that ocean is? Somehow this storm led us into this path of this Russian supply boat. Now, you know, the Russians, their ideology, the communism is what took us out of our country. We lost our freedoms, our country, we were escaping genocide. But yet this Russian boat didn't look at us as the enemy. They chose humanity, and they saved us. We were barely alive. One by one, they took us onto their boats, gave us the medical treatment. And after a day, they put us back on our wooden fishing boat. The smell, the foul smell of urine, feces, hopelessness. We went back into these basements. Our captain, my mother said this, said thank you to the captain of the Russian supply boat. And he said that, don't thank me. Because if I would have spotted you going into Vietnam, I would have drugged you back into Vietnam. But since you're here, I'm bounded to save you. I think that lesson, you know, when I hear that lesson, because I was too young to really remember it, you know. But that lesson, as I reflect through the years, is this. No matter what culture, what country, there's always a good and there's always a bad, right? And that we shouldn't look at one another, culture, color, background, saying you're the enemy. We should look at each other with humanity. And that's what they did. And I was taught that at a very young age. Lesson humanity.
Thank you so much to Tulam and his family for opening the doors to us for a full week so we could get these lessons. We filmed so much content, there is almost a feature documentary there, and whilst we haven't managed to get all of the content out, it is coming. So please subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell if you want to hear more of these lessons. Some of the greatest spiritual lessons that Tulam has explained, we still haven't had a chance to share with you, and we are so excited to do so. Comment down below what kind of content you would like to see on the channel and which lesson for you was your best lesson. Today's video was made possible with Mulliganbrothers.com. We took our whole film crew out to Colorado for a full week to be able to go film this, and it was only made possible by the support that we have at Mulliganbrothers.com, where you can get the best motivational clothing brand, the Rise and Grind, Hardest Work in the Room t-shirt, the Inspire Change t-shirts, and some of the Mulligan Brothers merchandise is linked down below. And the new journal is also there as well, where all the profits go back into making sure that we can go and film this content all around the world and bring these messages of inspiration and motivation and lessons of spirituality to you. I am your host, Jordan Mulligan. Go follow me on Instagram. Have a blessed and productive day. And remember, as always, the most important thing, move forward with passion and purpose in your life, because you could be the inspiration for somebody else. And that is the Inspire Change movement. Have a blessed and productive day, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.